we go. Good.
Yep.
All right, being 3:50, I'd like to call a special Board of Public Works meeting to order. Stand for our pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the agenda, Howard? Looking for motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Barrington, second by Mr. Ritchie to adopt the agenda. Any other questions? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is carried. Number 2, consider contract with AECOM for site investigation on Pearl Street. Howard?
All right, so the packet that I received at 7:48 last night is in front of you. This will cover the scope of work for investigating the site where they have no record of tanks being removed. Not saying that they're still there, but because this was identified in the phase 2.5 investigation for the downtown project, and 8 months later made available by the DNR for us to be investigating the site, and that it's not under construction yet and will be, that they would like us to investigate if the tanks are still existing and to the extent of hazardous material, the extent of the zone. So with that being said, AECOM put this together, being that they've been the contractor on site. They're the ones that did the initial investigation. They are now working down there with us on the project as part of the DOT contract. But this has to be separate because this is like its own job, so to speak. It's totally separate from the DOT project because they identified it in the 2.5 investigation. With that being said, the only way to actually get a contract with AECOM at this point was to have it as a change order to our existing one that we have with them for the county Highway S landfill. So what will happen if this is approved? They have a contractor lined up to do the exploration. It will not be the contractor on site, MCC. It'll be SGS, which is certified if we do find tanks that they can be removed right away. As stated in this document, that is not included in the overall price of this contract. It would be additional. We're expecting not to find tanks, just based on where, when they looked into this proposal, they looked over the site again, found monitoring wells that were installed in the 90s and were abandoned in 2001 that the DNR didn't recognize. And the readings from those sites were low enough that they could abandon them. So they're hoping that we won't discover the 4 tanks at the one site that aren't documented, or the 1 tank that is supposedly just north of that, kind of parallel with the Associated Bank parking lot. What they'll do is MCC will go in as part of the DOT project, remove the roadway when they get into the phase 2 part of the construction. We'll have to mark out an area where they'll have to take the curb and gutter and sidewalk out at that location just to provide us room for the full extent of where this containment area is. They'll go through with metal detectors, and then they'll go through and remove probably another foot and a half based off where we ran into the tank last week, it was around a foot and a half below grade. So they'll do that in both areas. There's 6 test pits, 3 at each location that will be dug. Samples will be taken. These will be taken to I believe Pace Analytical is their subcontractor that will analyze this and create all the information that the DNR needs. Best case scenario is we get there, do this exploration, find no tanks, dig these test pits, find that there is no contamination outside the extent. At that point, it can be determined if we dig down at the location of the borings for the initial investigation and handle the contaminant at that time. We'll kind of, from discussions with Marcus from AECom, he said that'll kind of give us, these test pits will give us an indication of what we can do. This was all submitted to the DNR as far as scope of work and how to make the site or to close the site eventually without extending into the full NR 716 investigation. So we'll know more as we get into it, but this kind of covers all of that except for if we find a tank or tanks. And the cost of this service would be $23,500. Does anybody have any questions?
What kind of tanks are you anticipating?
If we do find any, they're more than likely would be a combination of gasoline like we found last week, and either fuel oil or diesel fuel. They said more than likely it would be the latter of the two because they didn't find any lead contamination, and as early as these tanks were put in, usually it was leaded fuel that was carried in them, and not having any lead readouts at those locations, they're thinking it would be the other ones, if there is still any in the ground.
What was the other tank that they found?
That was a gasoline tank. They figure it was 750 to 1,000 gallon tank. Yeah, so we excavated the whole top of it. They brought in SGS, who is through AECom, which is through DOT. That all ran through the DOT contract because it was part of the actual project that when we went to put in the light base, we ran into it. So, yeah, once they cut it open, it looked like groundwater pretty much, probably 35, 40 gallons. That all had to be stored and put on site until they take samples of that, and then it'll have to be disposed of.
Any other questions for Robert? If none, I guess I'm looking for a motion to consider the contract. Motion made by Mr. Herder, second by Mr. Barrington to consider contract with AECOM for site investigation on Pearl Street. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
See all we have left is for adjournment.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, second by Mr. Besaw for adjournment. Any other questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.